My daughter wrote, "Plans have changed. You're not going on the cruise. It's only for real families." I didn't argue, I agreed. As soon as she left, I blocked access to the account, sold the house where she lived, and disappeared. When she came back, 112 missed calls. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you were listening in the comments. The phone rang while I was reading the news. I almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers usually meant scammers, but then I saw her name, Wendy. My daughter rarely called anymore, so I grabbed it on the second ring. "Dad, I have amazing news." Her voice carried that bright quality she used when selling me on something. "We're organizing a family cruise in July, 10 days in the Caribbean. You should come with us." I stood up from my armchair, nearly knocking over the water glass on the side table. A cruise. With Wendy and her family. We hadn't taken a real vacation together in 3 years, not since before she married Jonathan. A cruise? Together? That sounds wonderful, honey. When do we leave? July 14th. It's going to be spectacular. All-inclusive. Stops in Jamaica, Grand Cayman, Cozumel. She rattled off details while I fumbled for the notepad I kept by the phone. My hands trembled slightly as I wrote down the dates. "There's a cabin available for you. It's $2,800. "Of course." The number barely registered. What mattered was the invitation itself, the chance to rebuild what had been crumbling between us. "I'll take care of it right away." "Perfect. Listen, can you meet us Thursday morning, say 10 o'clock at Riverside Coffee House? We'll go over all the details then." After we hung up, I sat back down in the armchair and stared at my notepad. July 14th, 24, Caribbean cruise. Wendy, Jonathan, probably her in-laws Stephen and Carolyn, and me, part of something again. The next 2 days crawled past. I took my usual morning walks through the neighborhood, tried to focus on the mystery novel I'd been reading, prepared simple meals I barely tasted. Mostly I replayed that phone conversation, analyzing Wendy's tone for genuine warmth. Thursday morning, I arrived at Riverside 15 minutes early. They showed up exactly at 10. Wendy wore white linen pants and a navy blouse. Professional, composed. Jonathan followed 2 steps behind in khakis and a polo shirt, phone already in his hand. I stood as they approached, and Wendy gave me a quick hug that ended before I could return it properly. "Coffee?" I gestured toward the counter. "Already ordered on the app," Jonathan said, not looking up from his screen. "Should be ready in 2 minutes." We settled at a corner table. I'd picked up a key lime pie slice, Wendy's childhood favorite, thinking we might share it like we used to. She glanced at it and pushed the plate slightly away. "I don't eat that anymore, Dad." No explanation followed. Jonathan reached over and pulled the plate toward himself, fork already in his other hand, eyes still on his phone. I watched him take a bite while Wendy pulled out her tablet. So, the cruise. She swiped through photos of the ship, the pools, the dining rooms. Everything looked pristine and expensive. Stephen and Carolyn came up with the whole idea, actually. They wanted quality family time. "You're part of the family, right?" The question landed wrong, not a statement, a question, as if my status needed confirmation. "Of course," I said carefully. Jonathan finally looked at me, leaning back in his chair with that expression I'd come to recognize over the 6 years Wendy had been married to him. Amused superiority. "It's generous of us to include you, Lemuel. Most people your age would jump at this opportunity. People my age, not 'we're excited you're coming' or 'it'll be great to spend time together.' Just a reminder that I should feel grateful. I'm grateful for the invitation." I kept my voice level, testing the temperature of this conversation. "I'll transfer the money for my cabin tomorrow." Wendy nodded without meeting my eyes, scrolling to the next image on her tablet. "Great, that works." We spent another 20 minutes reviewing embarkation procedures and excursion options. Jonathan interrupted 3 times to check his phone, muttering about inventory issues at the dealership. Wendy asked if I had a valid passport. I did. And whether I needed help booking flights to Miami. I didn't. When they stood to leave, Wendy touched my shoulder briefly. "We'll send you the full itinerary by email. Looking forward to it, Dad." I watched them walk to Jonathan's BMW, heads bent together, discussing something I couldn't hear. He opened her door first, always the gentleman in public, then circled around to the driver's side. They pulled out of the parking lot without looking back. I sat in my own car for several minutes, hands resting on the steering wheel. The coffee shop visit replayed in my mind. Wendy's flat tone when she said, "You're part of the family, right?" Jonathan's smirk while eating the pie meant for her. The way neither of them asked about my life, my health, what I'd been doing. The 15-minute drive home passed in silence. I pulled into my driveway, walked inside, poured myself water. I didn't drink. That evening I opened my laptop at the kitchen table and logged into my bank account, found Wendy's information in my saved contacts, entered $2,800 in the transfer amount. My cursor hovered over the confirm payment button. This was what family did: contributed, participated, showed up when invited. Even when the invitation felt hollow. Even when your son-in-law treated you like an inconvenient obligation. I clicked confirm. My phone buzzed immediately. A text from Wendy. Just a thumbs up emoji. No, thank you. No, can't wait to spend time with you. Just a blue thumb pointing upward, acknowledging receipt of funds. I stared at that emoji for a long moment, closed the laptop. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't name it yet. 5 days before the cruise, I sat at my desk reviewing the packing list I'd made. Sunscreen, casual shirts. One decent suit for the formal dining nights. My suitcase lay open on the guest bed, already half filled. The trip felt more real now, less like a fragile hope I might have imagined. My phone buzzed at 9:47 in the morning, a text from Wendy. "Plans changed. You're not going on the cruise. It's only for real family. In-laws want time with their own. Hope you understand." I read it 3 times. Each time I expected the words to rearrange themselves into something different, something that made sense. They didn't. Real family. Not real family. My hands moved without conscious thought, pulling up her contact, pressing call. It rang twice before declining. I tried again. Same result, 2 rings, then silence. A third time, a fourth. Each call hit that same wall of refusal. At 10:15, another text arrived. "Dad, don't make this dramatic. Money for the cabin will be refunded. Don't make this dramatic." As if being excluded from a family vacation I'd paid to join was melodrama on my part. As if the phrase "real family" was something I'd misunderstood. I set the phone face down on my desk and sat completely still. Outside my window, a neighbor's sprinkler system kicked on, sending arcs of water across their lawn in rhythmic sweeps. I watched it for 2 full minutes, my mind blank and buzzing simultaneously. The next morning, a new message appeared, from Jonathan this time. "Lemuel, regarding the $2,800 cruise deposit, this will be refunded within 60 days following voyage completion. Thank you for your understanding." 60 days after the cruise ended. No apology, no acknowledgement that 5 days' notice to cancel plans was brutal. Just the business-like language of someone managing a transaction. I read his message once, then set my phone aside without responding, walked to the bookshelf on the far wall where I kept photo albums from before everything went digital, pulled out the one with the worn blue cover, Wendy at 5 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a sandcastle we'd built at Myrtle Beach. Wendy at 13, awkward in braces, standing beside me at her middle school science fair. Her graduation from college, master's degree in marketing, wedding day. My daughter in white, radiant, squeezing my hand before she walked down the aisle. I spread these photos across my desk in chronological order, a timeline of love and presence and showing up. Tucked between 2 pages, I found something I'd forgotten, a handmade Father's Day card from when she was 7, construction paper folded in half, decorated with crayon flowers. Inside, uneven letters spelled out, "Best daddy in the whole world. Best daddy. Not real family." I placed the card next to my laptop and opened a new spreadsheet, titled it, Assets and Access. My hands were steady now, fingers moving across the keyboard with methodical precision. First column, my assets. The house I owned outright, purchased 30 years ago in what was now a desirable neighborhood. Current market value, approximately $680,000. My retirement accounts, 401k, IRA, pension from my architecture firm, total value, $1.2 million. Savings account, investment portfolio. The second house I'd bought as a rental property 15 years ago. Second column, her access. Wendy had been living in that rental house for 6 years, rent-free. I'd added her as an authorized user on one of my credit cards for emergencies. She used it regularly for groceries, gas, occasional shopping. She had check-writing privileges on my main checking account, established when she was in graduate school, and temporarily needed help with expenses. Third column, my leverage. I stared at that empty column for a long time, spoke aloud to the empty room, testing how the words sounded. Real family, not real family. Repeated it twice more. The phrase lost meaning, became just sounds, syllables strung together to deliver maximum cruelty with minimum effort. Let's see exactly what real family means. I created a new document tab, labeled it simply Timeline, began typing. July 11th, contact attorney. I'd need someone who specialized in property law and family matters. Not a friend. This required professional distance. My bank had recommended someone a few years back when I'd updated my will. Timothy Clark. I found his information in my old email folder. July 12th, contact realtor. The rental house where Wendy lived needed proper market valuation. I knew a few agents from my years designing residential projects. Someone discreet, someone who understood investment properties. July 13th, review credit card account, document usage patterns. Prepare termination paperwork. July 14th, cruise departure date. While they were sailing to Jamaica, I'd be executing the first phase. The list grew longer as I worked through scenarios and contingencies. Each line represented a decision, an action, a consequence. This wasn't rage. Rage was hot and impulsive and sloppy. This was something colder, clearer. 3 hours passed. I hadn't eaten lunch, hadn't stood from my chair except once to refill my water glass. The spreadsheet expanded into multiple tabs: financials, legal steps, communication strategies, timeline adjustments for various scenarios. Outside my window, the sun began its descent toward the horizon. The room darkened around me, but I didn't reach for the desk lamp. The laptop screen provided enough light. White background, black text, everything reduced to data points and action items. I scrolled back to the top of my timeline document, added one more entry at the very beginning. July 10th. Accept the truth. Your daughter chose to exclude you. Your son-in-law calls you by your first name and treats you like a bank. They will take everything you give them and offer nothing back. July 10th. Decide this ends now. My hands rested on the keyboard, completely steady. I began typing the email to Timothy Clark's law office, requesting an appointment for the following morning. Kept the language simple. Property matter requiring immediate attention, prefer earliest available consultation. Sent. The screen glowed in the gathering darkness. I opened my banking app and took screenshots of Wendy's credit card usage over the past 6 months. $3,847.32 in charges, not emergencies. Routine purchases she'd decided I should fund. Outside, streetlights flickered on one by one. My reflection appeared faintly in the darkened window, an older man sitting alone, illuminated by a computer screen, dismantling his daughter's comfortable life one calculated decision at a time. I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. No alarm needed. My mind had been working through logistics even in sleep. I showered, dressed in casual business attire, and made coffee while my laptop booted up at the kitchen table. Timothy Clark's law office had responded overnight. An appointment slot at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I confirmed immediately, then pulled up my banking website to print statements. Everything I needed fit into a single manila folder: property deed for the rental house, 6 years of non-existent lease agreements, credit card records showing Wendy as authorized user. The drive downtown took 25 minutes through mid-morning traffic. Clark's office occupied the 3rd floor of a renovated building near the courthouse. Tasteful, professional, expensive. His receptionist, a woman in her 30s with efficient movements, directed me to a conference room with windows overlooking the street. Timothy Clark entered exactly on time. Mid-40s, gray suit, handshake firm, but not aggressive. He gestured to the polished table between us. "Mr. Parker, you mentioned a property matter requiring immediate attention." I spread my documents across the table in organized rows. Deed, bank statements, credit card agreements. The empty space where a lease should have been. "I own a rental property. My daughter has been living there for 6 years. No signed lease, no rent payments. I want to know my legal options." Clark picked up the deed, examined it, set it down. Opened the folder of bank statements, scanned 3 pages, closed it again. His expression remained neutral. This was business, not judgment. Without a written lease agreement, your daughter is legally considered a guest, not a tenant. You have full right to sell this property or require her to vacate with proper notice. My pulse stayed steady. And the notice period in Florida? 15 days for month-to-month occupancy. He tapped the deed. But selling the property eliminates that requirement entirely once you have a buyer. New owner issues their own terms. How quickly could a sale close in the current market? Clark leaned back slightly. That's a realtor question. But I've seen similar properties close in 30 to 45 days with cash buyers, longer with financing. I gathered my documents back into the folder, each paper aligned precisely with the next. Thank you. This is exactly what I needed to know. Mr. Parker? Clark's tone shifted slightly, not quite warmth, but something closer to professional concern. If you're planning to proceed, document everything. Keep records of all communications. This is straightforward legally, but family matters can become complicated. I understand. Driving home, I tested phrases aloud in the empty car. Estate planning. Simplifying my portfolio. Market conditions are favorable. The language of business, stripped of emotion. That evening, I reviewed my banking access one more time. Wendy's authorized user status on my credit card, $15,000 limit. Current balance, $3,147.32. Joint checking account labeled family expenses. Current balance, $8,517.44. Both established years ago when she'd needed temporary help. Temporary had become permanent. Help had become entitlement. I opened my contacts and found Denise Evans, a realtor I'd worked with a decade ago on a client's residential project. She'd been sharp then, efficient. Her website showed she was still active, specializing in investment properties. The next morning, I called her office. Denise, this is Lemuel Parker. We worked together on the Morrison project back in 2015. Lemuel, of course I remember. What can I do for you? I'm thinking of selling an investment property, wondering what the market looks like. Her enthusiasm came through clearly. The market in that area is excellent right now. I can have preliminary evaluation done by end of week. Are you thinking of listing soon? Very soon. Perfect. Send me the address and I'll pull comps, schedule a walkthrough if you're ready. I hung up and emailed her the details. Property address, square footage from my records, recent tax assessment. Within an hour, she'd responded with 3 comparable sales and a tentative valuation range, $340,000 to $365,000. More than I'd paid for it. Substantially more. On July 13th, I drove to Wendy's house with my phone charged and camera ready. She'd mentioned needing help with a stuck window last month. I'd volunteered to look at it, but never followed through. Now seemed like an excellent time. She answered the door in workout clothes, surprised but pleased. Dad, come in. I forgot you were going to check that window. No problem, won't take long. I moved through the house methodically, photographed the stuck window from 3 angles. Also captured the updated kitchen she'd remodeled last year. New cabinets, granite countertops, stainless appliances. The hardwood floors she'd refinished. The fresh paint throughout. Every improvement increased the market value. Every improvement made with money she hadn't paid in rent. All set, I called from the bedroom. Just need some lubricant on the track. I'll bring some by next week. Thanks, Dad. You want coffee? Can't stay. Got an appointment. She walked me to the door, already distracted by her phone. I drove home and emailed the photos to Denise with the subject line, Interior Documentation for Appraisal. July 14th arrived, cruise departure day. I woke at 7, practiced my expression in the bathroom mirror, warm smile, relaxed shoulders, the face of a father who'd accepted his exclusion gracefully. By 9:30, I pulled up to Wendy's house. Jonathan was loading the last suitcase into their car, a silver Mercedes I'd helped finance through a loan Wendy had urgently needed 2 years ago. He nodded at me without stopping his work. Wendy came down the front steps, carry-on bag over her shoulder. Dad, didn't expect to see you. I stepped forward and hugged her. She stiffened slightly but returned it. I'm glad you're not upset about the cruise. Family makes their own decisions. I kept my voice light, easy. Have a wonderful time, honey. You deserve it. I pulled out my wallet and handed her $200 bills. Her fingers closed around them immediately. No protest, no surprise, just casual acceptance. "Thanks, Dad. See you when we get back." Jonathan started the engine. Wendy climbed into the passenger seat. They backed out of the driveway and turned toward the highway. I stood on the sidewalk, waving until they disappeared around the corner. Then I walked to my car, sat behind the wheel, and drove 2 blocks before pulling over. Checked my watch. The cruise ship didn't depart Port Tampa Bay until 4 this afternoon. 6 more hours. They'd board soon, go through security, find their cabin, explore the ship. Tomorrow morning, everything changes. I drove home and set my phone alarm for 8:30 a.m. The bank opened at 9. The next morning, I was awake before my alarm. Didn't need it. Anticipation had kept my sleep shallow, purposeful. I made breakfast with deliberate precision. Scrambled eggs, wheat toast, orange juice. Ate slowly, chewing each bite completely. No rushing. This required clear thinking. By 8:15, I dressed in slacks and a button-down shirt. Gathered documents into the manila folder. Credit card information, account numbers with Wendy's authorized user details, joint checking account statements. Everything tabbed and organized. The drive to SunTrust took 15 minutes. I arrived at 8:57, parked near the entrance, waited in my car until exactly 9 o'clock. The doors unlocked. I walked inside. "I need to make some account changes," I told the receptionist. "Authorized user removal and an account closure." She directed me to Sarah Chen's office, a compact space with a desk, 2 chairs, and a small window overlooking the parking lot. Sarah was perhaps mid-40s, dark hair pulled back efficiently, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. I sat across from her and slid the first document forward. "Mr. Parker, you want to remove the authorized user and close the joint account?" "Yes, both immediately." I kept my tone matter-of-fact, businesslike. "These are my accounts, and I'm simplifying my finances." She reviewed the paperwork, typing occasionally on her computer, asked for my identification, verified account numbers. The process moved with mechanical efficiency. No personal questions, no curiosity about why I was severing financial connections. Just protocols and procedures. "The authorized user will lose access within 2 hours. The joint account closes today. Funds transfer to your personal account. You'll receive confirmation by email." "Perfect. Thank you." By 10:45, I was back in my car with printed confirmations in hand. The credit card with its $15,000 limit now had exactly 1 authorized user, me. The joint checking account was gone. Its $8,517.44 merged into my personal account. At sea, Wendy and Jonathan had no way to know. Ship internet was expensive. They'd keep their phones off, enjoy the all-inclusive amenities, charge everything to their cabin. They wouldn't discover the severed access until they tried using it. Home by 11. I made a turkey sandwich for lunch, poured a glass of water, ate at the kitchen table while reviewing cruise booking confirmation on my laptop. Beverage package, 890s. Shore excursions in Jamaica, Grand Cayman, and Cozumel, $1,200 total. Spa treatments, $450. All purchased under my payment method, all cancelable. At 2 o'clock, I called the cruise line customer service number, navigated the automated system with patience, pressed 3 for existing reservations, then 1 for booking modifications, then 0 for representative. Hold music played. I waited. "Thank you for calling. How may I help you today?" The representative's voice had that practiced cheerfulness of someone who handled hundreds of calls daily. I gave my confirmation number, answered security questions, explained my request clearly. "I need to cancel several add-on services purchased under my payment method." Keys clicked in the background. "I show these add-on services were purchased under your payment method. The ship departed yesterday, so we can process cancellation at 50% refund per our policy." "That's acceptable. Please proceed." More typing. "Beverage package, 3 shore excursions, and spa package canceled. Refund of $1,270 will process in 5 to 7 business days." "Is there anything else?" "No, that's everything." The call ended at 2:35. I made notes on my pad. Confirmation number, representative's name, exact refund amount. Then I opened my email and waited. Confirmations arrived throughout the afternoon. First the cruise line cancellation at 3:12, then the bank's account closure notice at 4:47. Finally, at 6:47, the authorized user removal confirmation. I poured a glass of wine, just one, and carried it to the back patio. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and deep blue. Somewhere in the Caribbean, my daughter was probably dressing for dinner, looking forward to tomorrow's first port stop. She had no idea what she'd find when she tried to buy her first drink. I raised my glass slightly to the empty patio. To real family. The wine tasted clean and sharp. I sat there as the light faded, not celebrating. Celebration felt premature, but this first phase was complete. The financial blockade was in place. Later, standing at my kitchen sink, I rinsed the wine glass under hot water. Through the window, I could see Wendy's house in the distance. Lights off, empty, silent. Tomorrow I'd call Denise about moving forward with the appraisal. Tomorrow, the second phase would begin. But tonight, I allowed myself to acknowledge this small victory. I dried the glass carefully, placed it back in the cabinet, and closed the door. The soft click echoed in the quiet kitchen. The next morning, Denise Evans arrived at 9:30. I stood on the front lawn of Wendy's house, my property, waiting with a folder of documents under my arm. Her silver sedan pulled into the driveway, and she emerged with a tablet and that efficient energy realtors cultivate. "Lemuel, good to see you. Ready to take a look?" I unlocked the front door and stepped aside. Denise moved through each room with practiced assessment, photographing angles, making notes on her tablet, measuring windows. I followed silently, watching her evaluate what had been my daughter's home for 6 years as nothing more than square footage and market positioning. The kitchen looked immaculate. Wendy had remodeled it last year. Granite countertops, stainless appliances, custom cabinets, all improvements that increased value, all paid for with money that should have been rent. "This property is in remarkable condition." Denise glanced up from her tablet. "Your daughter clearly takes pride in maintaining it. In this market, we could easily ask $295. I want it sold quickly." My tone stayed flat, businesslike. "Price it at $279. She paused, stylus hovering over her screen. "That's leaving money on the table, Mr. Parker. Are you certain? Speed matters more than maximum profit. List it tomorrow." We finished the walkthrough in 40 minutes. She promised comparative market analysis by end of day. The next afternoon, we met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Denise spread printouts across the table, recent sales in the neighborhood, price per square foot calculations, projected timeline. I ran my finger down the columns of numbers, circled the 279,000 figure with my pen, and slid the paper back across the table. "This price, tomorrow morning. I'll have it live by 9 a.m. She gathered her papers efficiently. "At this price point, expect multiple showings immediately." She was right. The listing went active July 18th. By evening, 2 showing requests had come through. By July 19th, 3 offers sat in my email inbox. A professional photographer arrived at 1 o'clock on the 18th. I unlocked the door with my key and stood aside as a stranger moved through Wendy's space, documenting every corner with a wide-angle lens. In the living room, I noticed a framed photo on the mantel, Wendy, Jonathan, and Jonathan's parents at Christmas. Last year, probably. Stephen and Carolyn smiled at the camera, arms around their son and daughter-in-law. I wasn't in the photo. The photographer adjusted his lighting and captured it anyway. That image would appear in the listing. Let potential buyers see it. Let them wonder about the missing family member. Over the next 3 days, offers arrived via email. I printed each one, spread them across my dining table, evaluated solely on financial terms and closing timeline. No sentimentality, no second guessing. The Morrison couple's offer came in at asking price. All cash, 3-week close. Young professionals, pre-approved, eager. Their agent had included a letter about how much they loved the neighborhood, how it would be their first home together. I didn't care about their story. I cared about the timeline. On July 22nd, I drove to Denise's office and reviewed the preliminary purchase agreement. Standard language about inspections, title search, closing dates, everything progressing exactly as planned. Throughout these days, my phone had been buzzing, constantly. I'd glance at the screen, Wendy's name, then deliberately set it face down without reading immediately. Each notification was logged mentally, creating a count in my head. 7 calls, July 20th. 13 July, 21st. 8 more by noon on the 22nd. I knew what they said without reading. The pattern was predictable. Sitting in Denise's office now, I held the pen over the signature line. Through the window behind her desk, I could see Tampa Bay in the distance, the same waters where Wendy's cruise ship was sailing somewhere south, probably approaching their final port before the return journey. I signed my name in steady cursive, dated it July 22nd, 2025. Denise shook my hand with professional warmth. This should be a very smooth transaction. The Morrisons are motivated buyers, everything's in order. Inspection is scheduled for August 1st. Excellent. I gathered my copy of the agreement into my folder. I'll keep you updated on every development. Walking to my car, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Another text from Wendy. I didn't check it, not yet. First, I wanted to get home. Wanted to sit down with a clear head and read through everything she'd sent over the past 2 days. I wanted to see exactly how she was reacting to her new reality. Over the next 2 days, my phone became a battlefield. 47 missed calls by late afternoon on July 23rd. Text messages arriving in clusters, 3 at once, then silence for an hour, then 5 more in rapid succession. I maintained my routine deliberately. Morning coffee, newspaper at the kitchen table, light lunch. Each time the phone buzzed on the counter, I'd glance at Wendy's name on the screen, note the notification, and continue what I was doing. In the evening, I sat in my armchair with my laptop open and phone beside me, began reading through the accumulated messages in chronological order, observing the progression like a researcher examining data. July 20th, 8:47 p.m. What did you do to the accounts? July 20th, 9:15 p.m. Dad, please call me. We need to talk. July 20th, 10:33 p.m. Bank says you closed everything. They say it's your right. How is this fair? I could picture her sitting in their cabin, trying to navigate the ship's overpriced internet connection, $35 per day for spotty service, trying to call the bank during business hours while dealing with time zone complications and dropped signals. July 21st brought a shift in tone. 7:12 a.m. This is ridiculous. Call me back now. 2:45 p.m. When I get back, we're having a serious conversation. 5:30 p.m. You can't just cut me off like this. Between text messages, voicemails accumulated. I listened to one, Jonathan's voice, angry and entitled. Lemuel, because of your actions, I've had to spend $2,500 of my own money on this trip. This is completely unacceptable. You're going to reimburse me when we return. I deleted it, made a note on my pad. J, unplanned expenses $2,500. Then returned to the text messages. July 22nd showed escalation. Morning messages referenced conversations I hadn't been part of, revealing information about how this was playing out aboard the ship. 9:23 a.m. You've ruined our entire vacation. Everyone is fighting about money constantly. Are you happy now? This one made me pause. Everyone. That meant Jonathan's parents were involved now. Stephen and Carolyn, the architects of my exclusion, were witnessing the financial fallout of their son and daughter-in-law's comfortable arrangement collapsing. July 23rd brought confirmation. 11:47 a.m. Stephen and Carolyn say this is just senile behavior. You've embarrassed me in front of them. They think you're losing it. Is that what you want people to think? I read this message twice, allowed myself a brief sardonic smile. Senile behavior. That was their explanation. Easier to dismiss me as confused and elderly than acknowledge what I actually was. Awake. I set the phone aside and returned to my book. Let them think what they wanted. Their opinions had been made clear when they decided I wasn't real family. July 24th began quietly. I made breakfast, read the morning paper, watered the plants on my back patio. Around 10 a.m., I happened to be standing near my living room window when I saw Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor, elderly woman who'd lived 3 houses down for decades, walking her small terrier past Wendy's property. She stopped, stared at something, pulled out her phone, the "for sale" sign. Denise had installed it yesterday afternoon. Mrs. Patterson's thumbs moved across her screen. I checked my watch. Depending on when Wendy checked her messages, she'd know within the hour. I didn't have to wait long. 10:47 a.m. Hi, honey. Saw for sale sign by your house. Everything all right? Hope you're not moving away. That wasn't from Wendy. She'd forwarded Mrs. Patterson's text to me, followed immediately by her own message. 10:48 a.m. What sale sign? What is happening? My phone started ringing. Wendy's name. I watched it ring 4 times. 5. Voicemail picked up. 30 seconds later, new voicemail. I didn't listen to it, not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked email. A message from Denise Evans had arrived 20 minutes ago. Inspection scheduled August 1st. Buyers eager to proceed, all moving smoothly. I typed a response. Excellent news. Please keep me updated on all developments. Sent. My phone rang again. Wendy. The 10th call in the past hour. I watched the screen. Her photo, taken 3 years ago at some restaurant, smiling, appeared above the green answer button and red decline button. The phone vibrated in my hand with each ring. 1 ring, 2, 3, 4, 5. Voicemail. I set the phone on the coffee table and returned my attention to Denise's email. The inspection date was significant, August 1st. That was 8 days away. The crews returned July 24th, tomorrow. Wendy would be home tomorrow evening, frantic and desperate. But the house sale was already in motion. Contracts signed, buyers committed, inspection scheduled. She could try to stop it, but the law was clear. Timothy Clark had explained it thoroughly. My property, my decision. No lease agreement, no tenant rights. My phone buzzed with another text. 11:02 a.m. Call me right now. I glanced at it, then set the phone face down. Tomorrow, Wendy would walk off that cruise ship and into a reality she hadn't imagined possible. She'd find her financial access severed, her housing being sold, and her father unreachable. Tomorrow, she'd understand what not real family actually meant. I picked up my book and continued reading. Outside, Mrs. Patterson finished her walk and disappeared around the corner. The "For Sale" sign stood bright and visible in Wendy's front yard, announcing to the entire neighborhood that change was coming. My phone rang again. I didn't answer. The house sale moved forward like clockwork. While Wendy sent desperate messages from Miami, where she and Jonathan had decided to stay after the cruise ended, searching for an attorney who could somehow stop what was already in motion, I coordinated inspections, appraisals, and closing preparations. August 1st arrived with morning humidity already building. I drove to the property at 8:30 to meet the home inspector, a middle-aged man named Rick, who arrived in a white pickup truck equipped with ladders and testing equipment. "Mr. Parker?" He shook my hand firmly. "Let's take a look at what you've got here." I unlocked the front door, still my key, still my property, and stepped aside. Rick moved through each room methodically, checking outlets, testing faucets, examining windows. I followed at a distance, watching him assess the space Wendy had occupied for 6 years as nothing more than systems and structures. In her bedroom, he opened the closet to check for moisture. I glimpsed her clothes still hanging there, dresses, jackets, everyday wear. Rick made a note on his clipboard, closed the door, moved to the next room. I stood in the hallway for an extra moment, staring at that closed closet door. Those belongings would be packed by strangers in a few days. The inspection took 3 hours. When Rick finished, we stood in the driveway while he compiled his preliminary notes. "Property is in excellent condition, Mr. Parker. Roof is solid, no foundation issues, HVAC system well maintained. Your buyers are getting a quality home." "Good. Send the report to all parties by tomorrow." He drove away. I locked the house and returned home. The next day, August 2nd, an appraiser named Linda arrived in the afternoon. I provided property documentation, then waited in my car while she conducted her evaluation. 2 hours later, confirmation arrived via email, appraised at $282,000, $3,000 above the sale price. The Morrison couple was getting a bargain. That evening, notification came from escrow, $14,000 deposit received from buyers. I forwarded the email to Timothy Clark with a brief note. "Buyers are serious. Proceed with closing preparations." Throughout these days, my phone vibrated constantly, 40, 50 times daily. Wendy's name appeared each time. I glanced at the notifications, read the key messages, responded to none. "You cannot sell our house. I'm calling the police right now. My lawyer says you can't do this. This is elder abuse. You're not thinking clearly. Stop the sale immediately." On August 3rd, I sent a single text message, the first communication in 2 weeks. "This is my house. There was never a lease agreement. I have the right to dispose of my own property." Her response came within minutes. "What do you mean, your house? I've lived here 6 years. You can't just kick me out. Where am I supposed to go? Dad, please." I set the phone down and didn't reply. From her texts over the previous days, I'd learned they were staying in Miami. She'd written on July 25th, "We're staying in Miami until August 7th to find a lawyer and fix this situation. Don't think you can get away with this." She'd found a lawyer. According to another text, that attorney had explained her legal position. Without a written lease, she had no tenant rights. Could potentially delay the process by a month through litigation, but would ultimately lose. 1 month of delay wouldn't change anything. The Morrisons had already committed. The deposit was in escrow. The inspection was clean. On August 4th, Timothy Clark called with the final confirmation. "Mr. Parker, closing is scheduled for August 5th. All documents are prepared. Buyers have funds ready. Everything is in order." "Thank you, Timothy." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began researching my own exit strategy. I needed distance, physical and temporal, between the closing and whatever confrontation would inevitably come. Asheville, North Carolina, 450 miles north, mountain town, different climate, different state. I found a furnished 1-month rental available immediately. Booked it online with first month's payment. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with the laptop still open to the Asheville confirmation. My phone showed 23 missed calls from Wendy that day alone. Tomorrow was closing day. Tomorrow I received the check. Tomorrow I started the final phase. I closed the laptop and picked up my phone. Scrolled through Wendy's messages without reading them in detail. Just counted them. 23. Set the phone down. From the drawer beside me, I pulled out a folder labeled Closing Documents, August 5th. Reviewed each page one more time. Signatures, dates, account numbers for wire transfer. Everything prepared. Tomorrow. The closing took less than an hour. I arrived at the title company office at 9:50, 10 minutes early. Denise Evans was already there, reviewing paperwork with Sandra, the title company representative. The Morrison couple arrived exactly at 10, young professionals in their late 20s, excited and nervous in the way first-time homebuyers always are. We sat around the conference table. Sandra placed a stack of documents in front of me, another in front of the Morrisons. "Mr. Parker, final sale price is $279,000. After realtor commission, title fees, and transfer costs, your net proceeds are $276,800. Wire transfer or check? Wire to my account. I have the routing information here." I signed each document slowly. Purchase agreement, deed transfer, disclosure forms. Across the table, the Morrisons signed their mortgage documents, occasionally whispering to each other, smiling. By 10:50, it was finished. Sandra stood and shook my hand. "Congratulations on a smooth transaction, Mr. Parker." I gathered my copies, placed them in my folder, and walked out. At 11:15, I pulled into the driveway of what was now the Morrisons' property. A locksmith van arrived 10 minutes later. Carlos, a young man with efficient movements and a professional toolkit. All exterior locks changed: front door, back door, garage. "Here are 3 sets of keys." He handed me a small envelope. "Old locks are in my truck if you want them. Keep them. I won't need them." The lock changes took 45 minutes. At 12:30, Carlos drove away. At 3 o'clock, a moving truck from Tampa Bay Moving and Storage pulled up to the curb. 3 workers emerged. The supervisor, a stocky man in his 40s, approached with a clipboard. "So, we're packing everything except appliances and window treatments, and it all goes to Store Safe on Henderson Boulevard?" "Correct. Unit 247. I have the rental agreement here." I unlocked the door, new key, unfamiliar in my hand, and stepped aside. The crew moved through the house systematically, packing Wendy's life into labeled boxes: bedroom furniture, kitchen items, clothing, books, personal photographs. I supervised from the doorway, pointing out what belonged to her and Jonathan, what stayed with the house. Watched strangers handle her belongings with the casual efficiency of people who did this every day. By 7 o'clock, the truck was loaded. The supervisor handed me an inventory sheet. "Everything's documented. We'll have it at the storage unit by 8 tonight. They're expecting the delivery." They drove away. I stood in the empty house, footsteps echoing on bare floors. In Wendy's bedroom, furniture marks remained on the carpet where her bed had stood for 6 years. Sunlight streamed through bare windows. I remembered helping her move in, telling her, "Stay as long as you need." 6 years ago. I pulled the door closed behind me and heard the new lock click into place, keys that weren't mine anymore. Before leaving, I drove to FedEx office and printed a single document I'd typed in my car. "All your belongings are at Store Safe Storage Facility, 47282 Henderson Boulevard, Tampa, FL, Unit 247. Access code sent to your email, paid through September 5th. I returned to the empty house and placed the notice prominently on the kitchen counter beside the keys I'd leave for the Morrisons. That night, I packed my own belongings at home. 2 suitcases, laptop, document box, framed photographs, mostly landscapes, a few of Wendy from years ago when things were different. The next morning, August 6th, I woke at 6, made coffee, ate breakfast standing at the kitchen counter. At 6:30, Mr. Harrison from next door knocked on my front door. I'd called him the previous evening. "Lemuel, you're leaving? Is everything all right?" "Taking a short trip, Ed. Can you keep an eye on the place? I'll be gone about a month." "Of course. You be safe." I loaded my Honda Accord methodically, suitcases in the trunk, laptop bag on the passenger seat. At 7 o'clock, I backed out of my driveway and headed north. The drive to Asheville took 8 hours with stops for gas and lunch. I-75 north, then I-26 east through the mountains. The landscape shifted gradually, flat Florida terrain giving way to rolling hills, then proper mountains as I crossed into North Carolina. I arrived at 3 in the afternoon. The furnished apartment was small but clean, 1 bedroom, efficiency kitchen, mountain view from the living room window. I unpacked essentials, then drove to a phone store in downtown Asheville. "New number activation will take about 2 hours, the young woman behind the counter said. "Is this a good callback number?" "No, I'll wait." I sat in the store's waiting area, watching people come and go. At 5:15, my new phone was ready. New number. No contacts except Timothy Clark's office, which I entered from the business card in my wallet. The old phone I powered off and placed in the bottom of my suitcase. That evening, I sat in my new apartment as twilight darkened the unfamiliar windows. The new phone rested on the kitchen counter, silent, anonymous. On the small dining table, I spread out documents, storage rental agreement, locksmith receipt, moving company invoice. Everything documented, everything legal, everything final. I stood and walked to the window. Mountain silhouettes were barely visible in the gathering darkness, but I knew they were there, solid, permanent, indifferent. Somewhere 450 miles south, Wendy and Jonathan were preparing to drive back to Tampa tomorrow, to discover what I'd done, to find their life packed into boxes and their home sold to strangers. I pulled the curtain closed and returned to the table. Tomorrow, they would understand completely. I learned about their return from Timothy Clark. Not directly, he simply forwarded an email from the Edwards family attorney received on August 10th. But I'd already heard Wendy's voice 3 days earlier, breaking through my Asheville afternoon like a stone through glass. August 7th, 4:23 in the afternoon. I was reading in the apartment's modest living room when I opened my laptop to check the voicemail forwarding service connected to my old number. The phone itself sat powered off in the bedroom drawer, buried beneath folded shirts. I didn't need to carry it. The voicemails came to me digitally, filtered through technology that let me monitor without being present. Her message played through the computer speakers, filling the quiet apartment. "We came home. New locks everywhere. There's a sold sign. Dad, how could you do this? Where are all our things? The neighbors are staring. Call me back right now." Her voice broke into sobbing. The recording ended with a harsh click. I sat motionless for a moment, staring at the laptop screen. The waveform of her voice showed sharp peaks where she'd screamed, valleys where she'd sobbed. Then I played it once more, listening carefully to the background. I could hear Jonathan's voice, distant and angry, though I couldn't make out words. Could hear what might have been a car door slamming. I opened my journal, a simple line notebook I'd purchased at a drugstore in Asheville, and made a note in neat handwriting. August 7th, 4:23 p.m. Discovery, emotional, hysterical. Background, Jonathan present, audibly agitated. Then I closed the laptop and returned to my book, a biography of Frank Lloyd Wright I'd been reading for a week. Over the next 3 days, the call log filled like a flood gauge during a storm. I created a spreadsheet to track the pattern with methodical precision: date, time, type of communication, sender, tone category, key phrases, escalation indicators. Then, at 7 o'clock precisely, I closed the laptop and continued normal activities, cooking simple meals, reading, preparing for the next day's walk downtown. The text messages showed a clear progression, almost textbook in their emotional arc. August 7th, 6:12 p.m. Dad, please talk to me. I need to understand. August 7th, 8:34 p.m. This is insane. You can't do this. Call me. August 7th, 10:58 p.m. Where are we supposed to sleep tonight? August 8th, 9:15 a.m. You can't just throw your daughter out on the street. August 8th, 2:47 p.m. Jonathan had to rent us a hotel room. Do you know how much that costs? August 8th, 7:23 p.m. You're a selfish old man. I hope you're proud of yourself. August 8th, 9:56 p.m. My lawyer says what you did is illegal. You'll regret this. I noted each one in my spreadsheet, categorizing the rhetoric: guilt manipulation, frequent, financial complaints, increasing, legal threats, hollow but persistent. Jonathan left his own voicemails. His voice carried that aggressive certainty of someone who'd never been denied anything important, never faced consequences he couldn't bully or buy his way out of. Lemuel, this is completely unacceptable. You've abused your family. This is elder abuse in reverse. It's financial manipulation. We're consulting attorneys about your mental capacity. You need to fix this immediately. Mental capacity. They were going to claim I wasn't competent to manage my own affairs. The accusation was predictable, almost boring in its transparency. I'd anticipated this move back in July when first planning. Had medical records ready if needed. My last physical in June had included cognitive screening. Results: perfectly normal for my age. I forwarded that voicemail to Timothy Clark with a brief note. For your records. May need documentation of competency if they pursue this angle. His reply came within the hour. Already prepared, have your medical records on file. Any competency challenge would fail immediately and likely result in sanctions against their attorney for frivolous litigation. On August 9th, I took my morning walk through downtown Asheville. The routine had become familiar over the past week. Leave the apartment at 8 a.m., walk down College Street, circle through Pack Square, stop at Biscuit Head for coffee and a morning paper. The city was beautiful in late summer, tourists mixing with locals, street musicians setting up on corners. I ordered an Americano, took it to an outdoor table, opened the newspaper, read about local politics, a music festival coming to town, restaurant reviews. Normal life continuing around me while 450 miles south, my daughter was spiraling through her own crisis. A woman at the next table was video calling someone, her voice carrying, "And then he just showed up with flowers. Can you believe it?" She laughed, genuinely delighted. I finished my coffee slowly, folded the newspaper, walked back to my apartment. The mountain air was clean, temperature comfortable. I passed other morning walkers, nodded politely. Anonymous among strangers, invisible and unburdened. That evening's voicemail review included the message number 47. Duration: 8 seconds. Wendy's number called at 3:34 p.m. I clicked play, expecting another tirade, crying, no words, just quiet, broken sobbing that seemed to come from somewhere deep and genuine, then dial tone. She'd called and couldn't speak, or had called specifically to let me hear her cry. I sat with that for a moment, finger hovering over the delete button. Then I saved that voicemail in a separate folder, labeled it August 2025. Wasn't sure why, wasn't sure what I'd do with it. But something about that wordless grief felt different from the anger and manipulation. Whether it was genuine or performative, I couldn't know. But I saved it. The final message of August 9th, arriving at 8:47 p.m., showed a different quality entirely. Exhaustion rather than anger, defeat rather than demands. Dad, I don't understand. Please just tell me why. We can fix this. Just call me back. Please. Long pause. Sound of traffic in the background. More quiet crying. She hung up without saying goodbye. I noted in my spreadsheet, August 9th, 8:47 p.m., bargaining phase. Genuine confusion or effective performance. Unclear. Tone. Defeated. No threats. August 10th brought a shift in tactics. Only 4 calls that day, but Timothy Clark's email arrived in the afternoon. Subject line: Edwards family legal demand. The attached PDF contained a formal letter from an attorney representing Stephen and Carolyn Edwards, not Wendy and Jonathan, but the in-laws. Strategic move: distance their son from the legal threat while applying pressure through their own counsel. Standard intimidation language demanded I restore everything as it was, and warned of potential legal action for improper eviction procedures, elder manipulation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I read it carefully, twice, made notes in margins of the printed copy. The legal arguments were weak. No lease agreement meant no eviction procedures required. Elder manipulation was absurd, given I was the elder doing the manipulating, if anyone. Emotional distress was subjective and wouldn't survive summary judgment. I forwarded the PDF to Timothy with a single line. Please respond as appropriate. I stand by all actions taken. His response came within 2 hours, efficient as always. Received demand letter from Edwards' family attorney. Standard intimidation tactic. I've responded citing your property rights, absence of lease agreement, and proper notice provided regarding stored belongings. Also noted that any competency challenge would require clear and convincing evidence, which they lack. They have no legal standing. Recommend continued non-engagement. I replied, understood, thank you. Please continue handling all communications. I remain unavailable for direct contact. I also wrote, bill me for all time spent. This is exactly why I hired you. That evening, I closed my laptop on Timothy's response. The screen went dark, my reflection appearing briefly in the black glass before fading. Outside my window, streetlights flickered on, one by one, casting pools of yellow on the sidewalk below. My new phone sat silent on the table beside me. Only Timothy and my bank had this number. The old phone was back in the bedroom drawer, powered off. Its digital record of 112 missed calls preserved but unacknowledged. I'd checked it enough for today. Tomorrow, I'd check again. The routine would continue until the storm passed. I stood, stretched, felt the stiffness in my back from sitting, walked to the kitchen and made myself dinner. Pasta, penny this time, not spaghetti. Tomato sauce from a jar, though I added fresh basil I'd bought at the farmer's market. Simple salad with olive oil and lemon. Ate slowly at the small dining table, chewing deliberately, tasting each bite. Normal evening routine, the same routine I'd been following for a week now. Washed dishes by hand, dried them, put them away in cabinets that weren't mine. Everything in this apartment was temporary, furnished, rented, borrowed. But somehow that impermanence felt freeing rather than unsettling. 450 miles south, Wendy was presumably doing the same, making dinner in whatever temporary space she'd found. Some hotel room or borrowed guest bedroom or hastily rented apartment. I wondered briefly where that was, imagined her and Jonathan sitting across from each other in silence, picking at takeout food, the weight of their new reality settling over them. Then I stopped myself from wondering. Their crisis wasn't mine to solve. Their consequences weren't mine to soften. I dried the last dish, put it away, and went to read before bed. The silence stretched into the following week. Communication frequency dropped dramatically, a clear sign that reality was settling in. Acceptance beginning its slow work. By August 13th, only 3 calls in 2 days. By the 15th, none at all. Then an email arrived. I sat at my laptop on the morning of August 15th, coffee beside me still steaming, checking messages as part of my morning routine. Wendy's name appeared in my inbox. Subject line, housing situation. I stared at it for a moment before opening. Her emails were rare. She'd always preferred texts or calls, immediate and demanding. Emails suggested deliberation, thought, perhaps even strategy. I clicked. We're forced to rent an apartment for $1,800 per month. Our savings are running out. Jonathan is working extra hours. I'm looking for a second job. Are you satisfied? Is this what you wanted? Your daughter struggling? I read it twice, analyzing the language carefully. The question, are you satisfied, was manipulation, an attempt to reframe her consequences as my cruelty, to make me the villain of a story where I was simply the man who'd stopped being her bank. The mention of struggling was designed to trigger guilt, to make me second-guess my actions. I closed the laptop without responding, poured my coffee down the sink. It had gone lukewarm while I read, and made a fresh cup. Took it to the small balcony and watched the morning traffic on the street below. People heading to work, living their lives, dealing with their own problems. Wendy's housing costs weren't my problem. Her savings depletion wasn't my responsibility. She was 37 years old, with a marketing degree and professional experience. Jonathan was a car salesman. They had employable skills and income. They'd just never had to actually budget before, because I'd been subsidizing their lifestyle. That evening, I checked email again. Nothing new from Wendy. 2 days later, August 17th, another email arrived. Subject, "Can we talk?" The tone was different this time, softer, almost vulnerable. "Dad, can we please talk? I understand I made mistakes. I want to fix this. Can we meet somewhere neutral? I miss you. Please respond." I read this one 3 times. The word mistakes appeared, vague, nonspecific, but present. That was new. The phrase "I miss you" could be genuine or it could be manipulation. Probably both. People were rarely simple. But I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I opened a blank document and began drafting a reply. Wrote the first version in 10 minutes, letting everything pour out. Anger, disappointment, the sting of being called not real family. Then I deleted it all, started again. This version was cold, clinical, listing every financial transaction over the past 6 years, every request granted, every boundary crossed. Deleted that too. The third version was shorter, direct, but still not right. I spent 3 days on that email, revising in the mornings over coffee, editing in the evenings before bed. Each version I stripped down further, removing anything that sounded like pleading or explaining. I didn't need to justify my actions, didn't need her to understand my reasoning. I just needed to set boundaries, clear, firm, immovable. On August 20th, I sent the final version. "Wendy, you called me not real family. I took that to heart. All I did was stop financing the lives of people who don't respect me, my house, my money, my decision. You are an adult woman with a job and a husband. Live independently. When you learn to appreciate rather than demand, perhaps we'll talk, not before. Dad." After sending it, I closed the laptop and went for a long walk in the mountains surrounding Asheville. Took a trail I hadn't tried before, one that climbed steadily for 2 miles before opening onto a vista overlooking the valley. Stood there for 20 minutes, breathing hard from the climb, watching clouds move across distant peaks. Didn't check for a response until the next morning. Nothing came for 4 days. The silence was different this time. Not the angry silence of someone refusing to speak, but the quiet of someone who had nothing left to say. Or perhaps someone who was finally thinking instead of reacting. Then, on August 25th, a brief email arrived. Subject line, empty. "Dad, I understand. I need time to process everything. Maybe someday we can talk. W. No manipulation, no threats, no demands, no excessive emotion or dramatic declarations. Just acknowledgement, just W instead of Wendy or your daughter or any of the other signatures she'd used before. I saved the email in my folder and closed the computer. Sat with it for a while, testing my own reaction, waiting to see if I felt victorious or sad or satisfied or empty. Mostly I felt tired and ready to go home. The next day I began planning my return to Tampa. Called Mr. Harrison to let him know I'd be back within the week. Checked my house insurance, made sure everything was current. Started a packing list, even though I had almost nothing to pack. On August 27th, Timothy Clark called. One of the few times we'd spoken by phone rather than email. "Mr. Parker, all legal matters are resolved. The Edwards family has ceased contact. No further action required from your end. Thank you, Timothy. Send me your final invoice. Already sent. Check your email." He paused. "If I may say so, you handled this situation with remarkable clarity. Not many people could maintain that level of discipline. I had good legal counsel. That helps, but the discipline was yours. We said our goodbyes, professional, cordial, complete. August 28th, I loaded my car at dawn. The drive back felt different from the escape north 3 weeks earlier. I wasn't running anymore. I was returning. The mountains gave way to Piedmont, then flat coastal plains. 8 hours of interstate, rest stops, bad coffee from gas stations. I arrived at my house late afternoon. The lawn needed mowing. Mr. Harrison had watered but hadn't cut the grass. That was fine. I'd handle it tomorrow. Mr. Harrison himself emerged from his house as I was unloading the first suitcase, waving from his yard. "Lemuel, good to see you back. Everything okay? You look different somehow." I carried the suitcase to my front door, set it down, looked back at him. "Everything's fine, Ed. Just took some time to think. Thanks for watching the place. Anytime. You need anything, just holler." Inside, the house was exactly as I'd left it. Mail piled on the floor beneath the slot in the door. Bills, catalogs, advertisements, kitchen clean, living room undisturbed, my whole life preserved in amber while I was gone. But walking through the rooms, I noticed something. I'd brought almost nothing back from Asheville. The 2 suitcases still sat largely packed in my car. During that month away, I'd learned I didn't need much. A few changes of clothes, some books, coffee, and simple food. The house was full of furniture, belongings, decades of accumulation, things I'd bought, inherited, collected. But I'd lived simply in that small apartment and discovered I preferred it. The knowledge sat in my chest like a smooth stone. I could walk away from all of this if I wanted to. The house didn't own me. Over the next few days, I took care of remaining business, met with an estate attorney I'd found through the Florida Bar website, explained what I wanted to change in my will. The attorney, a woman in her 50s named Patricia Chen, efficient and practical, listened without judgment. "So, you want to name charitable organizations as primary beneficiaries?" 3 specifically: Architecture Scholarship Fund at the University of Florida, Metropolitan Ministries Food Bank here in Tampa, and the SPCA Animal Shelter on North Armenia. "And your daughter?" "Secondary beneficiary, with conditions." We spent 2 hours drafting the language. The will wouldn't cut Wendy out entirely, I wasn't that cold, but the bulk of my estate would go elsewhere. She'd receive something only if she met specific conditions: maintaining employment, demonstrating financial independence, no requests for loans or advances for a period of 5 years. Patricia printed the final version. I read every word twice before signing. "Your witnesses can be my paralegal and office manager. They're stepping in now." The signing took 10 minutes, 3 signatures, notarization, copies made. Walking to my car afterward, I felt lighter. Not because I'd punished anyone, but because I'd reclaimed control over my own resources. Decided what would happen to my life's work and savings, on my terms, not based on obligation or guilt or anyone else's expectations. That evening, late August sun casting long shadows across Tampa, I sat on my back patio with coffee, the old familiar view, my yard, neighbor's fence, glimpse of Tampa Bay in the distance between buildings. City sounds, traffic, distant sirens, someone's music playing several houses away. My new phone sat on the patio table beside me. It hadn't rung in 3 days. Only Timothy and my bank had this number, plus Patricia Chen now, from the will signing. The silence used to feel empty. Now it felt like space, room to breathe, room to decide what comes next. In my pocket, my old phone stayed powered off. Maybe I'd reactivate it someday. Maybe I wouldn't. The number existed in some cellular database, waiting. But for now, that part of my life was paused. The sunset deepened from orange to purple to deep blue, the sky putting on its daily show. Somewhere in this same city, Wendy was watching the same sky from whatever apartment she'd rented. I wondered if she was thinking of me, wondered if she was sitting on some balcony or staring out a window, processing what had happened. Then I decided it didn't matter. Her thoughts weren't my responsibility. Her growth wasn't my project. Her future wasn't mine to manage. The coffee had gone cold, but I finished it anyway. The taste was bitter, familiar, grounding. I stood, picked up the cup and phone, and walked inside. In the kitchen, I set the cup in the sink and began preparing dinner. Chicken breast from the freezer, thawed in cold water, rice in the cooker, vegetables steaming on the stove. Simple meal, methodically prepared. The knife made clean sounds against the cutting board, crisp, rhythmic, satisfying. Water boiled, the kitchen filled with ordinary steam and cooking smells. Outside, darkness completed its work. Streetlights came on. The day ended. Inside, I was making dinner. Life continuing. That was enough. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.